to where they had a pretty good shot on him. They shot him, and of course I come up in the video and was talking about what happened, and they said they reckon they missed. Well, as I watched the tape, this is years later. As I watched the tape, I saw it the first time I ever saw the whole thing live. And then I had to back it up and I checked it out. And what happened was he shot him. He hit Turkey, hit him pretty good, and Turkey flew up in a big old pine tree. And they were, involved in reloading the guns and moving around. Of course, I showed up and everything else. And Turkey just fell out of the tree over there. Evidently, he was graveyard dead because he didn't flap, he didn't flop, he didn't flutter, he didn't do anything. He just, you know, uh, expired right there. I mean, he had done shot him pretty good. So that's what I'm telling y'all is that even though it's a turkey, and even though everybody knows the importance of going back and looking for big game and everything like that, you know, you kind of owe it to the turkey to go down through there and try to figure out what happens. I usually can come up with either where the pattern got took out by something, basically a broom switch, or I shot through too much brush or something. But you have to realize that with the vast majority of turkey ammunition that we have nowadays, when you squeeze the trigger, you're squeezing the trigger on a stick of dynamite. It's not that much, but it is pretty close to a quarter stick of dynamite. And there's a lot of energy that is expended uh, in pushing those pellets through the air. So they got quite a bit of warp to them. There's this one place, I'll never forget, just to show you how angles can change everything. There's this one place I spent 7, 8, 10 years hunting all around it. Never could get in it or anything like that. And I finally was able to drive up and I finally leased it. And I knew that when I leased that place, I knew it was going to have some big old long spurred gobblers in it because there just wasn't no way to get in there to kill them and all that. Had a beaver pond, went around the back of it. I grew up in the beaver pond, involved in some kind of fashion, and so I eventually was able to lease this place, and I think we had already killed one really good gobbler out there, which in South Alabama, a good gobbler got about 1.5 inch hooks. You're not going to get one that gets much bigger than that because they've been hunted since they come out the egg down there. They know all about surviving. But the location, hence that big swamp, it kept it. They would all roost in there, and it kept me, of course, from coming in the other way. And then they cut the timber on one side of it, and it grew up into a jungle, and you couldn't really get to them that way. And so the pasture that they lived in was a real pretty rolling pasture. And so this was probably the second or third time that year we had been in there, and so we eased in there and all that kind of stuff, and it got on up in the morning like 7:30, 8 o'clock, and everything had gotten quiet, and they had all done their morning ruckus and all, and I kept looking at this hay ring sitting up there, and I figured something was going to show up around that hay ring eventually. and all that. And so we eased on up, and then we had to ease up again, and we got to a little finger that went up through there, and there wasn't much cover. There, of course, there's cow pasture all the way to the wire, and so there was a few briars and a few overgrown. It was kind of an overgrown fence line, kind of went through there, but there wasn't very much to hide in at all. And so I was going along through there, and I could just stand up tall enough that I could look over the crest of the hill, and I could see the back. I could see his fan of this particular turkey we were after. That fan was down there. And I just kept thinking to myself, I said, he's coming to that hay ring. And so if I keep on going and I can get to within gun range of that hay ring, I was going to be in pretty good shape. So I eased on up, and we finally got rustled around in there, and we kind of we're at as far as we could go. And of course, that sun's getting hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter. And so it done got on up by 10:30 in the morning by then. And so we sitting there, and all of a sudden I looked, and a little bit to the right, almost directly in line with the little cross fence that we had kind of set down in there, I looked up through there, and I seen his fan coming that time. And he was coming to the shade, and of course I had continued calling back, but he was basically coming down there to that shady corner down through there. And so I said, boy, he gonna be pretty when he comes across the top of that hill. And so I watched him. I don't know. I got to see him for 100, 130, 140 yards across through there. And he was coming, and he was already done picked out that corner he was coming to, and so I didn't do much to bother him and everything. He got out there about 50 yards, and I got to communicating a little bit, and I asked, could he see him? And he said, see what? I said, there's a turkey in full strut right in front of you. And he said, no. He said, I can't see nothing. I said, there ain't no way. And he said, no, I can't see him. I said, you got to be kidding me. I said, he's in full strut. I said, he's coming across that wide open field. I said, he's right to the right of that hay ring up there. And he said, I can't see him. And I said, you have got to be kidding me. So the turkey, he's getting on closer now. I mean, it's deal closing time. He done packed up at 45, and he's coming on down. I mean, he's coming to get down in the bushes in the shade is where he was coming to. But we were in the shade, and he was coming to that shade. We were right there in that corner, and he got out there about 35 yards. I said, you got to be able to see him. He said, I don't see nothing. I said, there is no way. And by that time, I said, I'm going to make him gobble for you. And I was going to cut that turkey that was right in front of him. And I figured maybe his head shaking or something. For whatever reason why the camera couldn't see him, I was going to make it move to where the camera could see him. So anyway, I cut him real hard. And of course, he gobbled. And when he gobbled, they all gobbled. There was 3 more gobblers that were right to my left. And I mean, they were like 10 yards. And they just, so the turkey in the front said, pow, and then the 3 right here beside said, pow. And they just near about shook the ground. And I said, well, that's got to be a bunch of jakes he whooped off. And so by that time, Steve said, "All right, I got one." I said, "What's he doing?" He said, "He's got his head up." And I said, "Where's he at?" And he said, "Straight down the fence." Well, I cut my eyes up, and the one turkey was straight up the fence, and the Steve's looking past me back down towards the beaver swamp down in there. And so I looked up through there, and of course I could already see the heads. It was three heads right there. And he said, I said, "You on the one in the front?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "This is the craziest thing I ever done." But it was only like 15 yards to the turkey. And so I just shot through the briars and brambles and everything. But like I said, it was 15 yards if it was a foot. And of course, he's a big old long spurred turkey too. I mean, it was a bunch of old birds that were in that pasture and everything like that. But the whole key being is that we saw two entirely different things until we got together right there at the end, and I shot the turkey. And I said, I remember thinking to myself, I said, "I got one at full strut, done strutted all the way across the hill, and I'm fitting to shoot this turkey up in this briar patch." And so I just shot through the briars and everything like that. But if you pattern your gun and you trust your gun and everything like that, 15, 20 yards, I'll near about cut a sapling in half and still get the turkey and all that kind of yardage. But it just goes to show you that you need to follow through. And especially the later on in the season that you get, the more important this becomes, because the shots get longer, everybody gets an answer, you start pushing for more results and all that kind of stuff. So the next time you squeeze the trigger off on a turkey, number one, pay attention to where he goes and listen. A lot of times you hear him fall out and hit the ground. Or I've heard them flapping wings down there before when I thought somebody missed and all. And guiding taught me a lot of this over the years. My years out there at Rust Creek Guide Service, we used to kill 150 to 200 turkeys a year apiece. And so you get a whole lot of experience packed up into one little old place. So next time, just follow your shot up. And till later, y'all take care, and we'll see you soon.